Getting from practicing a scale or an arpeggio to the point where this is actually just a natural part of your playing is something that's a struggle for a lot of people. And it can be difficult. You do need to choose the right type of exercise. You need to think about whether it fits with your vocabulary and actually whether you can play it as well. In this video, I'm going to go over a 3-step plan that's going to help you take an exercise and then gradually apply it to a piece of music and get it into your playing so that you don't waste your time doing a lot of exercises that you never really get to use when you're soloing anyway. My name is Larsen, learn jazz, make music. Let's start with an exercise that you always want to work on, that you always want to know better, the diatonic 7th chords in a scale. That will be this exercise. This is a great exercise that will help you connect the scale and the arpeggios, and actually also connect the song to the arpeggios and to the scale, because everything sort of comes together. The basic chords you're going to come across are all 7th chords. That's what you're playing here. And I have another video where I'm going into more detail about how to work with this and what you can do with this exercise, but I'm going to link to that in the description, and then we're going to move on and see how we can use this and get this into our playing. There are a few practical things that you definitely want to get right when it comes to choosing the different kind of technical exercises that you want to work on, because this is something that I see students struggle a lot with and waste a lot of time with, just because they end up practicing stuff that they will just never really get to use. Don't make the exercise too long or too complicated. For instance, if you're practicing triad pairs and you want to practice triad pairs with chromatic enclosures, then you're actually setting up phrases that are like 7 or 8 notes long, and they're just difficult to fit into a jazz song unless you're playing something with 1 chord for a really long period of time. So maybe that's not the most useful way to work with triad pairs. Make sure that it's something that you can actually use in a song. If you want to practice chordal arpeggios in melodic minor, then you also have to have songs where you're actually using tonic minor or altered dominance, so that there is a place where you can actually use the material that you're practicing. Don't make it so difficult that you have to spend a year just learning how to play the technical exercise. I think in general you don't want to practice technical things that are completely out of reach, so you want to stick with stuff that you already kind of know, or that's just a little bit away from what you can already do, so that you're just gradually improving your technique. And of course, if you've never played arpeggios before, then don't start by playing them with leading notes and as triplets, because that's just way more difficult than just playing the basic arpeggio. I'm always quite surprised that not more people practice the things that they want to learn on the song. So if you have a technical exercise that you're working on, an arpeggio or a pentatonic scale or chromatic enclosure, then take it through a song. Find the places where you want to use it on each chord and then try to play that through the song. In that way, you're really placing it in the context that you want to use it, where you want to hear it, and you can also check if you have everything covered, if you know all the arpeggios you need, or if you know all the places where you can play that chromatic enclosure. In this video, I'm of course using a very short progression because that's very practical to demonstrate how this all works. But actually, when I practice new things, then I will take standards and then I will work with a song that I know really well and try to use that as a vehicle for exploring how things sound and how I can get things into my playing, because there I'm really relying on knowing a song extremely well. It's the same as what we try out if a lot of people are used to working with a blues, but you want to be able to do that with other songs as well. And of course, you'll have different songs for different types of things that you want, different sounds that you want to use. The turnaround that I'm using is C major 7 to A7 flat 9 to D minor 7 to G7 flat 9. So I'm using a C major scale to improvise over the C major 7 and the D minor. Then I'm using D harmonic minor on A7 and C harmonic minor on the G7 flat 9. To add something new to your vocabulary, then it could be useful to just go over improvising with arpeggios from the 3rd of the chord for each of the chords in a song that you want to play. So that's what I'm going to do with this progression. We're going to go over what the arpeggio from the 3rd is, and then figure out how to play it here, and then start making music with it. In that way, you're really practicing not only how you play arpeggios, but also how well you know the chords, so your music theory, and how well you know the fretboard. The arpeggios that we need, so if we look at the C major 7, that would be this arpeggio. So the 3rd of C major is of course E, so the arpeggio that we have there is an E minor 7. Now the A7, so the 3rd is C sharp, and the diminished arpeggio that we get there is this one. Then we have D minor 7, so the 3rd of D minor is F, and we have an F major 7 arpeggio. Then the G7, the 3rd of G is B, the arpeggio is a B diminished. And if you play these through the progression in a very basic way, that sounds like this. Of course, this is pretty easy to do, so probably it's also useful to just check if we can do this in a lower octave. And you can actually do this for all of the arpeggios except for the F major 7. And you can also combine the two arpeggios, and then you get an exercise that fills the entire bar like this. When you're working with an exercise like this and you want to practice some material that you want to play through a song, then you don't have to play really fast, but you do need to be able to play it so that it's very easy. It shouldn't be so that you have to think about what to play next. You should have an easy time finding whatever it is you need to play and play it, and then just do that in a medium or even medium slow tempo, because if you can play it in time, then you can use it, and then you can take it to the next level where you can try to improvise in that same tempo or a little bit lower. And this is something that's important to get right, because otherwise it's not really going to work. If you can't play this in time, in a slow tempo, you're not going to be able to improvise with it. Now you can play the arpeggios on the progression, and it's time to start improvising with them, because it's until now, of course, still just an exercise. It's a simple exercise and it's on the song, but you still need to make it into music. So the first thing to do is probably just to try and improvise just using the arpeggios, just to get used to how that sounds and what kind of melodies you can make, and then we can expand on that later. Once you've improvised with the arpeggios, then the next logical step is to start adding in all the other things that you usually work with. So try to improvise a solo where you're using the rest of the scale, the other arpeggios and all the chromaticism, and really just all the things that you normally work with, but focus on still using that one arpeggio and really get it to sit well in your vocabulary and combine it with all the other things that you already play. Depending on how experienced you are in improvising with arpeggios, for instance, then it can be that you don't want to just go immediately to improvising in time and try to mix it with all the other things that you play. So it could be useful to just sit down and then play or compose lines, maybe just trying to improvise through the progression rubato, just to see what's possible, what you hear, and how you can make melodies with it. Because you'd really just want to play some things and really hear what that sounds like, figure out what works and how you can use it, how you can make something that sounds good with all the material that you've practiced. Doing exercises like this might seem like the kind of thing you only need to do if you're working with learning how to improvise with arpeggios for the first time. But that's actually not true, because it's a great way to explore just one area of the neck, really challenge your fretboard knowledge, but also develop some great new vocabulary, because this is material that you can definitely use on a lot of different chords, and just being better at really improvising with the simple things is what is going to make you a better player. If you want to explore another video where I'm talking about some things that are going to make your practice a lot more efficient and help you stop wasting time on how you practice scales and arpeggios and improvising, then check out this video where I'm going over 2 of the things that I think are really important to focus on when you plan your practice.